I love the music choice. What's going on? So we are going to ask that very question to Joseph Chaplik, our guest here today on 1030 The Voice. Welcome back. And Joseph, what's going on in the life of Joseph Chaplik, current representative for LD3, Freedom Caucus member? What's going on?
Kathleen, thank you for having me. A lot is going on, actually, as I represent Legislative District 3 up here in Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley soon, North Phoenix, Cave Creek, the whole Northeast Valley. I am announced as of yesterday that I am running for the congressional CD1 seat, which makes up that whole district I just stated, yes, and running for Congress here for the great state of Arizona to represent us in Washington, D.C.
So the LD3 district that you currently represent, how much of, if we were to map out CD1, are you 60% of that, 30% of that, 80%? How much of what you currently have been elected to serve encompasses CD1? Is that a fair question?
That's a great question. LD3 that I represent for the last, going on 6 years, is the largest represented district in the state with Republican voters. We show up to vote. It's a good portion of CD1. Geographically, it's, probably a third of the size, but voting turnout is huge in LD3. It's why we keep the seat. It's why we're a conservative congressional district. And when you put in LD2 and LD4, which are the west side of my district, that makes up all of the congressional district. We have 8 of those 9 legislative seats as Republicans in this congressional district. So it is a red district. It is not in play for the Democrats.
But we've always heard when Congressman Schweikert was there, we always heard it was a swing district. We always heard that it was a moderate district. Is that not true?
No, I think a lot of that. And look, David is a great congressman. I know David. I don't know if he was pulling all the Republican votes, but that has changed. We know the district. We know the data. The overwhelming support since I've announced yesterday has been extremely strong. In fact, they were pushing me for a good month or two, if not a year, telling me I need to get into the seat if David ever steps down. And so, I thought it through. And I'll tell you how I came to that decision. One, I've spent 6 years in the legislature, and they say you have to drink from a fire hose fast, and that you won't know where your bathroom is. But look, I've been down there. They're long sessions. They feel like 12 years in serving because they're twice as long as normal. Almost 6 of the longest 10 sessions in Arizona history. So I have a lot of experience. Going to D.C., I can hit the ground running, right? I have this legislative experience. I was respected at the legislature early because of my business background, and I believe that will resonate right into D.C. Talking about my business career, look, I have executive functioning skills. I was in corporate America before I started my own investment real estate company. So I understand the common sense and the executive functioning skills on how to operate. And believe me, people will joke how dysfunctional government is, but you need people there that know how to operate and function and at a high level to make it better. And number 4, I mentioned this, the common sense policies. Look, this is all I've pushed in Arizona.
Right.
Good for America, good for Arizona agenda, good for our citizens. And I've had success with some of my past bills. I don't run a ton of bills because I believe in less government. I don't think we should be passing, thousands of new laws that will erode our freedom and liberties. But, good common sense policies that people can buy onto is definitely America first. And lastly, I'll leave you with this on this part.
Yeah.
Congressman Eli Crane said when we were passing the D.C. budget, if you watch the news, he was on the Capitol steps. He was upset. And he said, look, if you're upset with Congress in this country and it has low approval ratings for Congress and you want better results, send better people to help. Send better people to D.C. to help Congressman Crane and others do the right thing. And so I'm answering that call for our country now after serving, 6 years in the legislature. I have the experience up and down the board, and I've fought hard for everyone in Arizona, and I'm going to continue to do that in Washington, D.C.
Well, and I thank you, first of all. I know what it is to run for Congress. I did not get the result I wanted, but, you have to do what your heart and your mind, and I know you took some time making this decision. I know this wasn't like, you woke up 2 days ago and decided to run. You've been giving this a lot of thought and consideration. Congress to me right now they're a mess. They're an absolute mess. I love the idea that someone who is thoughtful and business driven, who wants to make economic decisions, because a lot of economic decisions have to be made, Joseph, right now regarding healthcare, regarding marketplace, free markets. And it seems to me that there's a whole other conversation going on up there in Congress about the decision making and finger pointing. How do you disrupt what the current state of Congress is as a new freshman congressman?
Well, you mentioned a lot of the money talk, right? Everyone's fighting over budget dollars. It's no different in the Capitol here. But, I'll go back a step further. Without safety on our streets and without the military might that we have in the United States, the rest of those issues are moot. We have to protect our citizens. We have to protect our communities. We have to make, families feel safe to have their children, walk home from school. These are things that are fundamental in America. We've always had this, and we continue to stress that. And then the affordability, right? What is that affordability? Well, look, the inflation has gone through the roof in the last 4 years with President Biden. We know that. And people get numb to it now. It's just like, the cost of what it is today to afford something. But affordability is your cash flow. What do you have in your pocket at the end of the month from your income stream? And we need to start reducing some of these expenses. Some people have cut back significantly, but we got to bring down the cost of food. Which President Trump has done. We got to bring down the cost of insurance. The medical care. Those are things that we're working on locally, and we're going to continue to work on that if I'm in D.C. But again, President Trump's policies are what this country needs. He needs someone that's going to stay loyal with him to always back those policies that the president's pushing. And, I've been a huge supporter of President Trump through both his terms. And even when many state legislators here in Arizona were jumping on the Ron DeSantis bus before the 2024 election.
Yes.
I was always firmly planted with Donald Trump. He was the best president we've seen in my lifetime. I'm 54 years old. And I think after 3 more years of being in the White House, he's going to be up there with the greatest because of his policies and what he's been doing for the American people of this country and keeping us, America first with our economy, as well as the safety and building up our military, which all have seen in the last year.
I can't even argue that because this is the greatest president in my lifetime, and I had respect for others. But the set of problems that we have, having come out of the past administration, we're not out of it yet. And so we need serious-minded people, not people that are grim and morose, but we need people that are committed to solving the problems. Joseph, we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. I want people to know how they can get a hold of you. We can't vote for you in Southern Arizona. We're sorry about that, but we can help you in other ways. So don't go anywhere. Joseph Chaplik running for CD1 Congress. And we come back, we'll talk about why he wants to go and join the Arizona Republican congressional delegation. You're listening to Win Tucson on 1030 The Voice, your trusted local news and talk. We'll be back after this brief break. Welcome back to Win Tucson. We're talking to Representative Joseph Chaplik, who wants to change his title, not necessarily what he's doing. Joseph, you've been a fighter in Arizona for the last 6 years. You took on a Axiom, I think it is, up in your part of the state, and you didn't back down. I don't know the final outcome of that. I think they're going to get to have their special, legislative rezoning and all of that. I don't think it's being fought. But it didn't deter you from standing up and taking a position to protect the people that voted you. Can people count on you to do the same kind of thing in Congress?
You know, Kathleen, a lot like Trump, I refuse to be bullied by, the big corporations or even the big lobbyists to try to get me to go against the will of my constituents. And that's what I did at the Capitol. What you're referencing here is a corporation that wanted to bypass local control, local city ordinances and local city zoning to come to the Capitol to help them fix a problem the city had with them. And that's not the proper role of government, right? We look at a lot of things when we vote, and then I hope everyone would look at this. Is it the proper role of government? Is it constitutional? Is it the proper will of our voters here in the district? These are just three basic fundamentals that you should be looking at. And that bill you mentioned, or that issue, was not the proper role of government. It's questionable constitutional with changing, the zoning and or bypassing your local zoning. That could destroy our state in every city if that continues to grow, which most policies grow at the Capitol once they get their foot in the door.
Right.
They start growing across the state. So it may be a Scottsdale issue right now, but it could be a Tucson issue soon, or any other small town where their zoning is overridden by the corporation that, has more money to throw at the state to get their policies pushed through at the Capitol. And it's no different in the United States, right? Washington, D.C. is the same way. We got to clean that out. I think, people that stand on principle and stand with the president and, face that, bully that is forcing you to do something or threatens you to, do something. I'm not going to tolerate it. That's not what I'm down in government for. I'm not a lifetime politician. At most, I would have had 4 terms at the state capitol. I'm foregoing my 4th term, which is coming up, to run for U.S. Congress. And, we got a lot of work to do. You mentioned, D.C. is a mess, but do we give up on that?
No.
Do we not send better people? Absolutely not. And so you have to continue to fight for our states and our country, or we're not going to have a country. Look at the border, Kathleen, just on an example here. It was invaded for 4 years with millions of people. And most people are starting to see that right now in our country, that was bad if they didn't pay attention and were aware of what was happening in the last 4 years, because now it's in their city somewhere in this country, when it was just a border issue before for the border states. But we have massive problems with people in this country that don't want to assimilate. They don't like Western values, and they essentially want to take over our country. And they're doing it through fear and terrorism. And we need to stop that. And then just look at the drugs alone. President Trump stopped the border invasion, him and J.D. Vance. And we can't be comfortable with it, though, because the drugs are still pouring through. They are coming across the border. And there's a lot of work to clean up Biden's mess. And when you talk about the narco terrorists, I think it's good to take them out, the drug smugglers. That is a war that is on our country. They are assaulting our country, connecting through the open border from the past 4 years, and they're finding other avenues to bring these drugs into our country, laced with fentanyl, to kill our children. That is a war on our families. We need to stop that to keep America great.
Well, and those that, right now, our U.S. Senator, Mark Kelly, is under an investigation because he publicly said and instructed people not to follow unlawful orders, which is, I'll let you say what you think it is. I've gone off on this for days. I look at who's representing us in this state, and that they get a national platform. And Eli Crane does what he does. You mentioned Congressman Crane, pretty much behind the scenes, except that what he does is so surgical sometimes in these interviews or committee hearings that it becomes national because he's just speaking the truth. Are you going to be more like a Eli Crane kind of congressman? I know you're going to do Joseph Chaplik really well because you've done that really well. What do you see your role in terms of communicating back to the people of the state of Arizona? What can we count on you for if elected to this seat?
Well, look, I'm my own person, right? And I report to the people of this district. And I think a lot of people forget that when they're in the elected positions.
Okay.
I've had the experience of being chairman of, the House Ethics Committee, the chairman of Regulatory Oversight. I've been vice chair of Appropriations and many other committees I've served on as well, with Commerce as the vice chair for Commerce a couple of years ago. So when you look at what I've done at the state level, almost a flawless, perfect score on my voting records with conservative organizations across the board. I've consistently fought for my constituents, whether it's defending individual and parental rights or cracking down on crime or fighting for that secure border while it was wide open. I've championed medical freedom. This is not going to end. I will be a voice even greater for the Arizonans here in our district, right? Just because I'm in Washington, D.C. does not mean that I'm not here in Arizona representing them. And I think we have that problem where a lot of people go to D.C. and they forget about their state and they get sucked into the swamp. Look, I love this state. I chose to move here and relocate and raise my family here. I will defend this state as long as I'm living, as well as this country, because I see some fear that we're losing it. We're losing it with these Democrats that are out of touch. I think they're just crazy with what they're pushing. They're defending illegals that have crossed our border, that are purging our medical care and our
Right.
food stamp systems and abusing the funds that we're giving them and sending them back to their origin of country that hates us. Like, this is madness. We need to stop that. We need to put America first. We need to control what we can control and clean up the mess from President Biden over the last 4 years to make America great again, make your community safe, make your families feel safe, and help every American family first. I don't think that's out of touch. I really don't. And for unlawful orders, I don't see what's unlawful about protecting American citizens. That's our role.
It is absolutely our role, and putting America first as we head into 2026. How perfect is that, right? 2026 is not just another year in this nation's history. It is the milestone, if you will, that these people put everything. They left their country of origin. They came here. They created a new nation. The Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, has survived 250 years. But there are those that don't want it to survive beyond this. And I think if we don't have serious-minded and intelligent people back in the Congress who are willing to dissect the big problems, break them down. I heard Speaker Johnson today explaining all the fraud, waste, and abuse in this healthcare system, and that there's going to have to be some tough cuts. Do they want to hurt people? No. They want to make sure that the system doesn't completely break down, and we have to be willing to support people that understand how to get laws passed. Does the United States need more laws? Probably not. I think the cut in regulation has spurred our economy, but you have to understand how it all fits together if you're going to go do this job. Joseph, if you are serving CD1, do you get to pick your committees? Can you request things? What would be best suited for Arizona and for your experience for you to serve on?
I will let the Speaker of the House look at my past background and strengths and pick the best route for me, and I'll go with what they determine as a freshman. But I want to go back to something you just mentioned, right? The constitutional rule of law. That's like in the fabric of Americans. Like, I don't know why we're going away from that. The freedoms and liberties that are under attack by the left that just hate the Constitution. This is what made our country the best country in the world. And we need to defend those. But, the freedom from being under tyranny, the liberties to choose how you want to live. This is all in the Constitution. Since I've been born, I believe I've been a conservative person. And, I'm going to defend that. I got involved 6 years ago to run for the State House. I did tremendously well down there. And now it's going to the Washington, D.C. to continue to drive that agenda, to do well for the people of Arizona, and to defend what our principles of this country are. And it's all right there in the constitutional rule of law.
Well, and the law, it's the law. It's not some obscure group. And I guess what bothers me most is that that there's people in this country that hate that Constitution, that hate our freedoms, that are fighting to protect those that are here criminally, and that are fighting to protect the criminals, that we issued thousands of CDL licenses, that we have random people driving around time bombs because they don't know how to drive in our country. The cost...
You know what bothers me, Kathleen? You know what bothers me? That 21 Republicans in D.C. turned on President Trump. That bothers me.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs loyalty. He needs Republicans that are stand firm with him, that are going to be there for him and not turn their back. I am not just going to be happy I got elected to Congress. I'm going to be there to serve and be there to be loyal to our president. I think a lot of people get to Congress and then they just turn on everybody else and they care about themselves only. That's how I've never been like that. That's how a lot of people fail. I've always been here for our constituents. This is why I have the huge success of support right now after I announced yesterday. People have been waiting for me to do this. And that support is going to put me across the finish line. The constituents that have been pouring out to me about helping, what can they do? I'm going to have every precinct covered in this district to help me. And I will win this seat larger than David Schweiker did because I believe it's a true Republican district. It's shown that in the data. And just like, history repeats itself. I ran in somewhat a swing district my first election. It was called LD 23.
Yeah.
The incumbent almost lost to a Democrat prior election. I got in. I replaced the incumbent, going on his fourth term. I beat him. And then I destroyed the Democrat in that election in the general. And that was my first time elected. So I was a unfamiliar name. And I got in and I won. And I think this district now is a familiar name. When I run in the general, I will beat the Democrat by 5 to 8 points, no problem. I truly believe that, and I'll hold you accountable for a steak dinner if I do.
Okay. I'm happy to buy a freshman congressman a steak dinner because I'd like to take out the whole delegation. Greg Stanton, Adelita Grijalva, Yasmin, I don't know her last name. Those are the three Democrats. Are they safe in their seats based on what you know right now? Or do we have an opportunity to... Adelita's district is kind of a mess. So, but Adelita's not being really successful. And maybe you don't even look at that, but it would be all men from the, well, no, that's not true. I can't say that yet. So we have to look to see, we have to get through primaries and see what happens. And
yeah, I'm not sure. I don't keep an eye on those districts, Kathleen. I will tell you this, though. I encourage anybody to run for your local office, your state office, your city council, school boards. Look, when President Trump won in 2016, that fueled this country. It fueled me to see him win that president election where everyone said he was going to get destroyed. And that got me involved. I said, look, I'm going to help out as well. I'm going to get involved. And I got involved at the state level.
Yes.
6 years later, I'm running for Congress and continue help and support. And look, it's going to be an honor to serve with the president. Honestly, 2016 to 20, we thought he'd be done by 24. But look, God works in different ways. He's there for 24 to 28. If I get there, I'll be in his last 2 years. I will be loyal as the day is long for him.
Joseph, we got to go. Thank you for running. Congratulations. We'll look forward to updates. Joseph Chaplik, what's your website?
JosephChaplik.com.
JosephChaplik.com, Chaplik. Have a great day. Tomorrow, China Watch Wednesday.